Britain's political landscape may be heading toward one of its biggest transformations in decades, and the latest voting elections across England, Scotland, and Wales could become a turning point not only for Prime Minister Keir Starmer, but for the entire future of British politics. Right now, Labour is facing pressure from both sides. On one side, angry working-class voters are moving toward Reform UK, the party associated with Nigel Farage and anti-establishment politics. On the other side, progressive and left-wing voters are drifting toward the Green Party, frustrated with Labour's policies and leadership style. And this is exactly why these elections matter so much. For years, British politics was dominated by two major parties, Labour and Conservatives. But these voting elections are showing signs that the old political system may be breaking apart. Smaller parties are gaining influence, and voters are becoming less loyal to traditional political identities. Keir Starmer entered government promising stability, professionalism, and change after years of conservative rule. Labour's victory in the 2024 general election was supposed to mark the beginning of a new political era. But only a short time later, cracks are already beginning to show. As local elections approach, Starmer has launched a late campaign push to stop Labour voters from abandoning the party. His message is simple: don't split the vote, don't risk instability, and don't hand power to parties that cannot govern nationally. But many voters are no longer convinced. One of the biggest challenges Labour faces is Reform UK. The party has successfully tapped into public frustration over immigration, economic anxiety, rising living costs, and distrust of establishment politics. Reform presents itself as a voice for ordinary people who feel ignored by mainstream politicians. This is especially dangerous for Labour because many of these voters traditionally came from working-class communities that once strongly supported Labour. These areas often voted heavily for Brexit, and many residents now feel disconnected from London-based political leadership. For these voters, Starmer appears too cautious, too polished, and too focused on moderation rather than bold change. At the same time, Labour is losing support on the left. The Green Party is gaining momentum, particularly among younger voters and urban progressives. Many former Labour supporters believe the government has failed to act strongly enough on climate issues, housing, public services, and foreign policy concerns such as Gaza. For some progressive voters, Labour under Starmer feels too centrist and too willing to compromise. The Greens are benefiting from this disappointment by presenting themselves as a more principled alternative. This creates a unique political problem for Labour because the party is being squeezed from two completely different directions at the same time. Usually, political parties lose support to one main rival. But Labour is now losing conservative-leaning voters to Reform UK while also losing progressive voters to the Greens. That makes rebuilding a stable coalition extremely difficult. And this is why the current voting elections are being treated as more than just local contests. They are becoming a national test of Starmer's leadership. If Labour performs badly, pressure inside the party could increase rapidly. Some Labour members may begin questioning whether Starmer's strategy is actually working. Others could argue that Labour has become too disconnected from ordinary voters. Political analysts are closely watching these elections because they may reveal a deeper trend developing across Britain. Voters are becoming more fragmented. Instead of supporting one of the two traditional parties, many people now feel comfortable switching between smaller movements depending on the issue that matters most to them. Some prioritize immigration. Others prioritize climate change. Others care mainly about the economy or public services. This fragmentation weakens the dominance of large political parties and creates a much more unpredictable political environment. The Conservatives are also struggling during these elections, which adds another layer of uncertainty. After years in power, the Conservative Party continues to deal with internal divisions and public dissatisfaction. That has opened space for Reform UK to grow even faster on the political right. So Britain may be entering a completely new era where multiple parties compete seriously for influence instead of just Labour and the Conservatives dominating everything. And if that happens, future voting elections could become far more chaotic and competitive. Coalition politics, tactical voting, and regional alliances may become increasingly important. Smaller parties like the Greens, Liberal Democrats, Reform UK, Plaid Cymru, and the Scottish National Party could hold more influence than ever before. For Starmer, The challenge is immediate and personal. He must convince voters that Labour still represents both economic competence and meaningful change. He also needs to prove that his government can improve everyday life for ordinary people dealing with high living costs, pressure on healthcare systems, housing shortages, and economic uncertainty. Because if voters feel nothing is improving, they will continue looking elsewhere. That is the central danger facing Labour today. The party won power promising renewal, but expectations were extremely high. And in modern politics, voters often lose patience quickly. Social media, economic pressure, and constant political coverage create an environment where governments are judged almost immediately. Starmer supporters argue that he inherited a difficult situation after years of political instability and economic problems. They say real reform takes time, and that Labour is trying to govern responsibly during uncertain global conditions. But critics argue that caution is exactly the problem. They believe Labour is trying too hard to avoid controversy instead of offering bold solutions. And in politics, especially during difficult economic times, voters often reward parties that appear more passionate, emotional, or radical. That explains why both Reform UK and the Green Party are attracting attention despite being very different politically. Both parties offer something many voters feel Labour currently lacks: clear identity and strong emotional messaging. As these voting elections continue, the results could send shock waves through British politics.